Yo, what is up, guys? Back with another video. And today, I'm continuing my little small series about teams that are legit, teams that will surprise you next season, teams that are undervalued. So recently, I've made a video about the Cardinals and the Titans. You can go and watch those if you haven't already, they're pretty good. But today, obviously, I'm going to talk about another team on this list, a very small list, a list of 4 teams, and this team is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Before we get into the video, I would like to add that I really appreciate all the views, the subscribers, and I'd really encourage you to subscribe, hit that bell button. I really appreciate it. Me and Mike are so grateful and thankful for all the views that we've been getting, all the subs. And let's get this channel to 1,000 subs. Let's go. So let's get into the video. So this might definitely surprise a lot of people because this team has been consistently good and they've had a winning record for many seasons, 13 plus seasons. But I do want to include this team on this list because they have not been to a Super Bowl or have had a decent playoff run in 10 years. And I can say that this is definitely due to Tom Brady's Patriots destroying the Steelers in the playoffs in the regular season. It's definitely because of that. And Tom Brady is gone, if you haven't noticed. The Patriots aren't good anymore. And this is definitely a year for the Steelers to rise on top of the AFC, with Big Ben probably the most experienced quarterback in the AFC, but that doesn't mean that he's going to be the best. Obviously, there's Patrick Mahomes with the Kansas City Chiefs that won the Super Bowl last season, and Lamar Jackson's Ravens, maybe Ryan Tannehill's Titans, we'll see. So besides those teams I just listed, I honestly don't see any better teams. Those are the 4 best teams in the AFC, in my opinion. There's no doubt about it. So the AFC definitely is not a stacked conference next season. Obviously, the NFC is going to be really good. So this is definitely a prime opportunity for Pittsburgh to maybe clutch up the AFC North or get a 5th seed with a really good record. So we will see. So, a little bit about this team. If you haven't noticed, Ben Roethlisberger basically missed the entire season last year. He got injured in the middle of week 2 against the Seattle Seahawks. He had a self-injury in his right elbow, so he couldn't throw the football. And recently, a couple weeks ago, he posted a video with the Pittsburgh Steelers where he was throwing to Juju, James Conner, Ryan Switzer, and he was throwing like a beast. So I do think Ben Roethlisberger is all recovered. He's definitely healthy. And this is the main factor to this team. And I'll talk about that a little later in the video. But first, I would like to start talking about this Pittsburgh Steelers defense. So it's no surprise that this defense was on top 5 in the AFC, in the NFL, if matter of fact, last season. It was one of the best defenses in the league, and it definitely carried them in, I'd say, all their games. So the Pittsburgh Steelers started Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges last season, and I think they were both really bad. Duck Hodges, of course, had his clutch moments, but Mason Rudolph, man, he was just horrible for the Steelers. And I'm not ripping Steelers fans because I am a Steelers fan, and I honestly hate Mason Rudolph. And I love Duck Hodges, but he just wasn't good enough for the team. But obviously, Ben Roethlisberger's back. But with that being said, 2 bad quarterbacks running this team last season definitely made this team bad on offense, which made this defense just 10 times better last season. So obviously, week 3, they traded, in the middle of week 2 and 3, they traded for Minkah Fitzpatrick, gave the Dolphins a first-round pick, and Minkah Fitzpatrick absolutely popped off. All I gotta say as a Steelers fan is that if we did not make this trade for the Minkah Fitzpatrick, our team probably would have won like 5 or 6 games last season compared to 8. And this team was 8-5 at a point, and then just lost the last 3 games. It's whatever, but they weren't clutch at the end of the season. I don't know why. But we did see an immediate impact when Minkah Fitzpatrick started for this team week 3. A lot of turnovers in that game, and I believe he might have had an interception. He did have an interception in that game, and he also had a forced fumble. So Minkah Fitzpatrick had 5 interceptions the entire season and 2 forced fumbles last year. So he was definitely an immediate impact, and I can say this, and so can everyone else in the league, NFL quarterbacks can say this, because they literally, late in the season, teams that were going against the Steelers defense literally did not throw near Minka Fitzpatrick. They had to throw to the other players like Joe Hayden, Steven Nelson. Literally no one threw to Minka because he was so dangerous, and that's why his stats started to diminish, because no one was throwing near him. But he still had an impact, turned a lot of games over, like the Colts game, the Dolphins game. He had 2 interceptions, won the game for the Colts, 99-yard interception or 97-yard interception. Just immediate impact on this team. Minka Fitzpatrick made the Pro Bowl last season as a safety, and I consider him probably the best safety in the NFL. So Minka Fitzpatrick definitely was a star on this team last season, one of the biggest stars in the NFL. But to consider him a really good player, I don't even think he was the best player on this team's defense. I'd honestly give that position to TJ Watt. So obviously Cam Hayward is on this defense too. All props to him. Captain of this defense. Definitely one of the best players on this team. Consistently good. But last season, TJ Watt definitely had the best performance on this team. And I expect it to happen for many years to come. So TJ Watt was definitely a steal in the draft when they drafted him. He was number 30, I believe. And this dude just absolutely popped off last season. So about the linebackers, TJ Watt's a linebacker. He had 14.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 2 interceptions. And an interception against the Cardinals that absolutely clutched them in this game. So this dude did win Pittsburgh a lot of games. A lot of sacks that, gave the Steelers 3 and outs. It was just easy for them. But TJ Watt, in my opinion, did not do this by himself. Obviously, we had linebacker Bud Dupree with 11.5 sacks, 6 forced fumbles. This dude also had an amazing season last year, and the Steelers' defensive line was just crazy good. The linebackers were popping off. So the last linebacker that's notable is Devin Bush. So obviously we saw that Devin Bush did have a really great impact on this team in the beginning of the season. I believe he had 2 interceptions and he had a touchdown against the Chargers. This dude had an immediate impact on the Steelers in the beginning of the season, but the hype started diminishing down as the season continued. He was struggling in games, but that was his rookie season. This is definitely his next season's definitely going to be a lot better for the Steelers, and he's definitely going to have all the weight on his back because the Steelers did release the rest of the linebackers at the same position, including Mark Barron, which also had a great season. But the Steelers do think Devin Bush is the future. So this definitely could be a weak spot in the Steelers defense next season because Devin Bush is only going to be a sophomore and he's going to have to carry all the weight. But I believe he can do it. He just has to have just a great season in my opinion, and it's possible and it probably will happen. So like I said, the rest of the defense is solid. Cam Hayward is definitely the captain of this team, has an amazing impact on the Steelers defensive line, basically reinventing the steel curtain. Stephon Tuitt, probably one of the most underappreciated players on this defense, having an amazing season. He's definitely going to pop off next season, have another great year. Definitely underappreciated, and will surprise us next season, and maybe he will make the Pro Bowl for the 2021 NFL season. Obviously, Vince Williams is definitely underappreciated, and that's probably it about the defensive line. But the rest of the defense, including Joe Hayden, another Pro Bowler, that along with Minka Fitzpatrick were just definitely controlling the secondary. Were absolutely destroying quarterbacks, interceptions after interceptions. Joe Hayden, I believe he had 5 interceptions, and he's definitely going to have another great season with the Steelers. Third season or fourth season for Terrell Edmunds, their first round pick. He's definitely going to have a better season. I believe that Terrell Edmunds hasn't lived up to his true potential yet. He's been decent for the Steelers, but we haven't seen him have like a superstar level status. And this season, definitely, he's going to have his best season out of all of them so far. And you got to watch out for him, so be careful about Terrell Edmunds. And the last player on this defense that I'd like to talk about is Steven Nelson. So Steven Nelson, along with Joe Hayden, are both quarterbacks on this team's defense. And Steven Nelson, in my opinion, is one of the most underappreciated players in the league. So this dude only had one interception for the Steelers last season, but it was lights out. Maybe he has stuff to learn, but he's so underappreciated. I believe this dude could make a Pro Bowl, and he's underappreciated on the Steelers defense. All the attention is given to Minka, Joe Hayden, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward. No one's thinking about Steven Nelson, Bud Dupree, all underappreciated players that will have great seasons next year. So the next thing I'd really like to talk about is their schedule. So their schedule has been ranked the second easiest schedule in the NFL, giving them a very, very high probability of making the playoffs. And at number one, the number one easiest schedule in the NFL actually was given to the Baltimore Ravens, a team in their division. So that's why everyone's underappreciating Pittsburgh, because maybe the Ravens are going to win their division and the Steelers are going to get a wild card. But I think Steelers actually have an easier schedule than the Ravens and probably will actually win the AFC North. So the best part about this Steelers preseason is they actually have 5 preseason games. They play the Hall of Fame game against the Dallas Cowboys. So that gives them extra time to prepare, because this offseason is definitely crazy with COVID-19 and training camps are probably going to be canceled. So this is definitely a huge boost for the Steelers defense, rookies, all that kind of stuff. And another really great perk about the Steelers preseason is they actually play the New York Jets at MetLife. So you're probably wondering, okay, so what? So the Steelers actually do play the New York Giants week 1 at MetLife. So they're already going to travel there once, 2 weeks before, play them again. So I think it does give them a feel of how they're going to play there. And obviously they're better than the Giants. So it does give them a strong week 1 advantage. So looking at this beginning of the schedule, week 2 they host the Broncos, who I think will be good, but not earlier in the season, should win that. Week 3 they host the Texans, who definitely are downgraded because they lost Hopkins. So we're definitely going to counter the Texans' offense, should win that. Week 4 play the Titans. It's definitely going to be a hard game to play in Tennessee. I think the Steelers possibly should lose this game, but I think they could clutch it out in many scenarios. Week 5, they play the Eagles at home. Easy win, no doubt about it. Home field advantage in this rivalry always wins. Week 6, we play the Browns at home. Easy win. And in Week 7, we play at Baltimore. So as you can see, we're possibly starting 5-2 or 6-1 if we beat the Titans. I think beating the Ravens is not hard. I think we should beat them twice next year, no doubt about it. I definitely think we probably would lose Week 7 against the Ravens, but it's a possibility we win. The rest of the schedule is so fortunate. Obviously, the week after Week 7 against the Ravens, we have a bye week. And this is so freaking lucky because our farthest opponents, the farthest we have to travel, is actually against the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. And this is Week 9. We had a Week 8 bye, and we're going to have all we have to prepare for this game against the Cowboys, because this is definitely one of the hardest road games of the season. I don't think the Cowboys are too good, but it's fortunate we have this game the week after the bye. And then we play the Bengals, Jaguars, Ravens at home, the Thursday night football, Thanksgiving. I like to see all those wins. The Redskins, easy. And then at Buffalo, would lose that, we'll see. I think we should win. And then the Bengals again, the Colts at home, easy. Week 17 at Cleveland. So the schedule is so fortunate, so easy. I expect a really good record. 13-3, 14-2. Definitely a possibility for the Steelers. And this is why. Obviously, I talked about how this defense is so great. It will have another great year. And I'm putting it at number 1 in the NFL next year. No doubt about it. But we have to talk about this team's offense and how this offense is going to be 10 times better than it was last year. So obviously, Ben Roethlisberger, he led the league in yards in 2018, and that was with the help of Antonio Brown, Juju-Smith absolutely just popped off. Obviously, they had James Conner in the whole season, so he's definitely not going to have a problem this year unless he gets injured. But talking about James Conner, we have to talk about the fact that they drafted, 4th round, Anthony McFarland. Anthony McFarland out of Maryland, I thought this dude was an absolute stud when I watched him play like Ohio State, Penn State, because I am a Big Ten football watcher. So this dude, I thought he was so undervalued in the draft because he was injured his senior season, I believe. Anthony McFarland is definitely a gem in this draft. And I think the Steelers could do like running back by committee, but if James Conner gets injured, definitely see Anthony McFarland getting more snaps. And if James Conner stays healthy, he's definitely going to have a really great season because he is a Pro Bowler. But back to Ben Roethlisberger, obviously this dude is great. Hall of Famer, 2-time Super Bowl champ, Super Bowl MVP. He had the most passing yards in 2018, like I said, with AB and Juju just absolutely popping off. But we haven't really seen the Steelers offense without Antonio Brown because last season Ben Roethlisberger was injured, so that doesn't even count in my opinion. So virtually for the first time besides week 1 of last year, we're going to see the Steelers defense with a very experienced Juju-Smith who had an over 1,000-yard season 2 seasons ago. James Conner is going to have a great season. But like I said in the beginning of the video, this whole team basically revolves around Ben Roethlisberger. Because if Ben Roethlisberger is healthy the entire season, you are most likely going to see a Super Bowl team. But if Ben Roethlisberger gets injured one game, you're basically done. If he injures his right elbow again, season's over. The Steelers cannot win a Super Bowl with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges at QB, and those are the backups. So that's unfortunate for them. Obviously, there's virtually no cap space to get a really good QB. Obviously, they missed out on James Winston, but they can't afford him with $1 million the Saints offered him, really, bro. But Cam Newton obviously is the other QB that's on the table, but definitely don't have enough cap space to sign him, so our backups are screwed. So basically, if Ben Roethlisberger is injured, that's a key factor. It's him. If he gets injured, season's over. If he's healthy the entire season, the Steelers are winning the Super Bowl, no doubt about it. About the wide receivers, they're going to be spectacular next season. Don't underestimate this wide receiver group. Juju-Smith is obviously a Pro Bowler. And Deontay Johnson, I think he could make the Pro Bowl. Maybe as a punt returner on special teams or maybe as a wide receiver. I think he's going to have a really great season because Deontay Johnson led the league in separation against the defender cornerbacks. So that was with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges. This dude is definitely going to have a spectacular sophomore season, maybe one of the most undervalued sophomore wide receivers in the NFL. Besides him, they have James Washington, who had a lot of deep passes last season. I wouldn't say James Washington's a Pro Bowler yet, but he could have a great impact on this wide receiver group. But besides him, I think Chase Claypool, their second-round draft pick, is going to have an amazing season as a rookie. Chase Claypool reminds me of DK Metcalf. This dude is very tall and very fast. He's very strong. He's considered. He could play tight end. That's how big he is. But this dude is so fast that he's going to be an absolute threat for every defense that goes up against him. So this draft pick does work out perfectly for the Steelers because it allows Juju-Smith-Schuster, the number 1 wide receiver, to play more in the slots. It gives James Washington, Deontay Johnson, and Chase Claypool many opportunities downfield where Ben Roethlisberger definitely is really great at getting the ball there. So like I said, I'm a little unsure about this running back situation next season because James Conner's a Pro Bowler, but he was very injured prone last season. And if this dude stays healthy the whole year, this could mean that he could face injuries in the playoffs. This happened to Todd Gurley, so we'll see. So I don't think the Steelers should, rely on James Conner the whole season because he should be healthy in the playoffs where it matters the most. But I think James Conner should be the starter. Running back by committee is not a bad option. But besides that, this offensive line is really good in Pittsburgh, creating pockets for the running back to run and protecting the quarterback. Obviously with center Marquise Pouncey, one of the best in the NFL. David DeCastro, a right guard, one of the best in the NFL. They picked up Steven Wisniewski from the Chiefs. Sorry if I botched that first name. Obviously, Alejandro Villanueva is a spectacular player for this offensive line. So the protection, the pockets are just great for the running back situation. It's just the fact that we don't know if James Conner's going to stay healthy the whole season. But obviously, Benny Snell, Jalen Samuels, and McFarland could carry this offense. We'll see. So a rather interesting pickup by the Steelers this offseason was fullback Derek Watt, the brother of TJ Watt and JJ Watt. So two brothers on the same team, offense and defense. So honestly, I think this is a really good pickup besides the fact that they're brothers, because the Steelers fullback situation, when Roosevelt Nix was healthy last season, the Steelers offensive line just was a lot better. Roosevelt Nix was an absolute monster for them, but he was injured and the Steelers released him and picked up Derek Watt. So it's the fact that Derek Watt's more healthy than Roosevelt Nix, and the fullback position for the Steelers offense actually works really good for them. So I do expect this pickup to be really good. Derek Watt's going to be great in Pittsburgh for them next season. And the last thing about this offense, which you cannot underestimate, is this tight end group. So obviously Vance McDonald is a great tight end, strong tight end, and does a lot for this team. But they did pick up Eric Ebron, a Pro Bowler from the Indianapolis Colts. We saw with Eric Ebron when Andrew Luck was there in 2018 that he was possibly one of the top 3 tight ends in the NFL, making the Pro Bowl, having a spectacular season, touchdowns, yards, a lot of receptions. So he absolutely had a great season as a tight end. But we saw the downgrade last season with Jacoby Brissett. So obviously Ben Roethlisberger as his QB, he said he's going to have a great season with Ben Roethlisberger as his QB. That's what Eric Ebron said. And obviously he is going to. He had an amazing season with Andrew Luck, probably a really great QB if he didn't retire. And I believe this tight end group is just going to be spectacular. Maybe Eric Ebron becomes, the next Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz. We're going to have to see. So definitely do not underestimate the Steelers' offense, because everyone knows their defense is going to have a really great season, but it's the fact that is the offense is going to perform well enough. So as what I stated, the wide receiver group doesn't have problems anymore. We already have Pro Bowlers, Juju, and James Washington and Deontay Johnson are just going to pop off. Obviously, they're not Pro Bowlers, but they're going to pop off, in my opinion. Eric Ebron, Vance McDonald, the tight ends are there. The offensive line is great, but the only problem I honestly have is the running back situation. Obviously, they pushed the running backs a little more last season because, they didn't have the best QBs, so they relied more on the run and less on Mason Rudolph, Duck Hodges. But obviously with Ben back, they're not going to have to rely more on the run because you already got a Pro Bowl, Super Bowl champ QB. So that is really all I got to talk about. Obviously, the special teams isn't bad. It's not the worst. It's pretty good. Chris Boswell, good field goal kicker for them. But that's really it. So this team's definitely going to have a great season next season. And don't be surprised if they win the Super Bowl. Don't be surprised. So that is it. That's all I really got to say. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Adios.